Hey everybody, welcome to Everyone Else Has a Podcast. I'm JD.
I'm Scott.
And you are you. And you're here.
We're so good at that. We just ad-libbed that whole thing. Isn't that great? I'm Scott.
This is what, episode 7. Episode 7, so we still don't know what we're doing.
Right.
But thank you for paying attention. So we're somewhat a little bit more prepared than last time that we got together. We hadn't done a podcast in like over, 2 months?
It was like 2 months, yeah.
I think it was 2 months from the time the episode 4 released to the time the episode 5 released. Mm-hmm. And that day, like, I was tired. I was not very talkative.
Yeah, it was very much like George Lucas in Star Wars. It was kind of a disappointment. But today we're gonna do like Indiana Jones number 3. And not Indiana Jones number 4.
No,
we're gonna be on our game.
No aliens.
No aliens. That's
Yeah.
So many alien stories. I watched all those aliens movies for the first time like last year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts? You talking about the original ones like
All
Sigourney
of them.
Weaver?
Yeah, I watched all of them in order, all the way through the one with the weird alien head on the front, like the white, like blue progenitors or whatever. I watched all of them, even Aliens versus Predator.
I've never seen any of them start to finish.
Yeah, that was the thing.
Like,
and so I did.
Yeah, still for me to do it, and I don't know if that's probably a shameful thing for a 41-year-old man.
No, because the thing about it is that there's this weird thing that you have to watch these alien films, but they're exactly the same film over and over again. No offense to Aliens fans, but I mean they're basically survival horror films over and over again. It's not. They try to go deeper with like, oh, there's like a different alien that seeded the world, and I'm like, who cares?
Same.
Everyone, there's 7 people in there. 1 or 2 of them are gonna live. It's gonna be the female main character, and then maybe someone else. And then one of the films, they set it up. I forget which one it is, but they set it up like there's gonna be this epic, like, continuation of the story, and then the next person comes in and just completely wipes it and goes back to start. And I'm like, it's the same with Terminator films.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing just now. I was like, wow, that fits the mold for a lot of franchise movies.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why Marvel is better.
Yes.
Because the Marvel one actually told one continuous story for 10 years.
Yeah.
That's pretty dope.
Actually, just the other night, we sat down and we tried to watch Mulan on Disney Plus.
Oh, yeah.
And we found out that you have to have premium access on Disney Plus in order to do that.
Disney Plus Plus.
Yeah, it's like, pay me extra.
And all you got for the extra $29.99 would be that one film, right?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware.
Why don't you just call it a rental?
So
why premium?
So we're gonna wait till December and watch it then. But in its stead, on that evening, on this family movie night, we went back and watched the first Avengers movie. And it's fantastic. I haven't seen it in years.
Yeah.
And, my son's rolling his eyes. He's like, oh, my gosh, I used to watch this, nonstop repeat when I was like 10 years old. And I was like, I used to let you watch this nonstop repeat when you were 10? Was I aware of this?
He's admitting to sneaking the movie.
It's not that bad, really, for a 10-year-old, I guess, in the world that we live in today. But it was so good, like you were saying.
It is good. And it makes you wonder why DC can't do that. Like, what's wrong with DC that they have to make the same movies over and over again? Like, there's going to be a 4th reboot of Batman. And you're like, everybody knows who Batman is. We all get it. His parents were killed. It's tragic. And then he has a fixation with flying rodents. We get it. He fights crime. Like, why do you have to tell me the story again? The Batman with the vampire actor?
Vampire
Edward
actor.
Cullen is Batman this time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's the Batman. It's the glittery vampire from the ridiculous young adult fantasy novel.
It just goes to show you're a little bit more nerd than I am.
I am a little more nerd because I'm so hopeful. Every time I watch a DC, I'm like, this is going to be the one that's good. And you know what? Out of all of the DC Universe ones, I just watched Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
It was actually pretty good. Now, again, the threshold for good in DC is usually like sucks or mediocre in Marvel, but it was better than most of the DC ones. And you're like, you guys you guys could totally plan this out.
Sure.
You could make this work together.
Speaking of DC, just this morning I read in Fox News that Ray Fisher, the guy who plays Cyborg in the Justice League movies, has some issue with some of the studio execs, the director, the head of DC, at the time that the movie was being shot. And anyway, I can't even quite figure out what the problem was, except that they didn't go. They had creative differences, and the new head of the studio is like, "Yes, that's what happens. We often have creative differences, and the director always wins."
Well, that's one of the things that I wondered about, because the director that he's mad at is Joss Whedon, and Joss Whedon is like Buffy, Firefly, I think Dollhouse. I'm not sure about that one. But and then some of the Marvel movies where Joss Whedon was involved in it too, I think. And when he was saying his complaints, I'm like, you're not alleging abuse. You're not alleging some kind of discrimination. You're alleging that he was mean to you.
Right.
And I'm like, and then I thought, this actor doesn't have a lot of credits to his resume. So
He's 30 years old.
But I'm like, do you know what it's like to work for a major film director? Because it sounds like what he's saying is, you know, you hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
No offense. I mean, there might be something more that we don't know about.
No, and I'll say this. So
like
I bring up his age, and at the time the movie was being shot, he was probably anywhere between 24 and 26, 25, I would guess, maybe 20, even 6, but that's probably on the generous side. And I feel like there are many people in younger age bracket, and I'll even say this about myself compared to the generation in front of us. There's a lack of grit that we lack in our generations, or have lacked. We've lessened and lessened since World War II generation, since what do they call that, the greatest generation. You know, we've become a little bit softer, a little bit weaker, and as time has gone by, and of course, you know, we have, you know, the generation right behind us is known as, like, you know, the trophy generation. You know, the millennials. Everybody gets a trophy for everything, and I think that he would fit into that in that demographic. And I'm not you know, ousting him or saying he doesn't have legitimate complaints. I'm just saying, from the articles that we read, I couldn't tell. Like, I don't understand.
One of the things that
this just sounds like you're
booyah.
being weak.
It does. Yeah, my first, the first day that I was a manager at a major corporation, a real job, so to speak, like, someone quit the very first day, and at this time, I think I told you the story before. I don't know if I told you guys, all 7 of you. But
we keep maintaining those 7 viewers.
We got 7.
And, we did talk to one other person. We upped our game to 8.
Maybe 8.
She watched half of. No.
She started. She said, "I started your podcast." I'm like, that's kind of a put down, right? Like, I started it. Anyways,
sorry.
The very first day I had a job as a manager, I was working 2 to 11 with Tuesdays and Wednesdays off, which is a sucky shift, right? I mean, it is. But it was also the first day as a manager, and so I'm like, I guess I got to earn my way up. That's just the way that I thought about it.
Sure.
But this person comes up to me and says, I'm quitting. And I was like, why are you quitting? Oh, because I have a college degree and I shouldn't have to work this shift. And I was like, I have a college degree, you know, and I'm working this shift, and I've worked my way up. So I'm like, if you put in your time, you're going to get a better shift. You just need to suck it up and do it. But there is that mentality from some people. And I don't know if that's Cyborg's problem, or that he didn't want to say booyah. Maybe he didn't grow up on Teen Titans and he doesn't understand that that's what we were looking for. Because my kids did. We watched Teen Titans when my girls were little, and we absolutely wanted Cyborg to yell booyah and tell cheesy jokes and stuff, because that's the Teen
that's
Titans
part
movie.
of the character,
right? And even if he does, even if it is a dark and gritty DC version of him, DC movie version, it's, you know, whatever.
It's a good nod to that. You know, to the Teen Titan version.
But if you don't like it, if you don't like the person who's yelling at you, and I'm like, the director's yelling at you? I've been in community theater where the director did the equivalent of yelling at you because you're a volunteer. They can't actually, like, come and cuss you or something. But did he not play sports? I mean,
I don't know.
I don't remember a coach. I mean, I had a Baptist youth pastor was our basketball coach. He still yelled at us.
Did he cuss you?
He didn't cuss us.
Okay.
He's like, gosh darn it. Blizzards and whipping cream.
Oh,
Didn't
man.
say that. That's some of those cheesy Christian cuss words.
You mentioned something. I think we mentioned this in the previous episode, or the one right before that. We were talking about college and how exorbitant the cost is and everything. And I think I mentioned that Dave Ramsey's people say that the average college graduate, upon getting into the job market, earns about like $33,000 a year when they first enter into the job market. Mm-hmm. A couple of years ago, I was talking with my sister-in-law, and she was telling me the story that she was either in conversation with someone that was just entering into the job market. I think, they had a plumber that was out at their house, and the plumber had to take a call in the middle of a conversation with her, and the plumber's very distraught on the phone and, hangs up. So my sister-in-law asked the plumber guy, and this is a younger guy. I think sometimes we typically think of plumbers of like just being these old,
large people with pants that don't go all the way up.
Yeah, and 50-some-year-old guy.
TV show plumber.
But this was a young guy, and so she said, "Is everything okay? What was that? That looked like a kind of distressing phone call." He says, "Yeah, that's my girlfriend, and she just graduated from college, and she's trying to get out into the job market, and she's doing all these interviews with people, and nobody can meet her standards for what she's looking for in a job." And so my sister-in-law just kind of dug in on that a little bit more and said, "So what's she looking for?" She refuses to work in a cubicle. She wants a corner office with a window, or at least a window. She wants to earn starting pay $60,000 a year, and there was something else. There was something else that was just, I can't remember exactly what it was.
What was her college degree? Did you?
I don't know. We're not talking about medicine or law.
Right. I really wanted you to say it was something like, my favorite is still turf management. Tell me it was turf management.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Concrete.
But
management.
the demands seemed a little outrageous.
Yeah.
But it's like, again, like I am entitled to this. Like I should get the trophy. This conversation thus far, the last, however, since we started, 12 minutes ago or something. None of this is on our list of things.
We never get to the
about.
list.
We've been very nerdy, and then we've kind of...
Well, look, we didn't talk about like heavy topics this time. We just kind of talked about movies and...
It's true.
Yeah.
We're really keeping our listeners and our viewers on their toes. They're like, these are different guys than I've been watching previously.
Right. All right, we were talking about Mulan for like a split second.
We did.
That is on our list.
So we were talking about Mulan. So we went to watch this movie, couldn't watch it, gonna wait till December because I'm not paying extra for the Disney for the premiere access on Disney Plus.
On top of the $8 a month.
But one of the things I just found out, saw an article either yesterday or 2 days ago that Disney had threatened to stop filming in the state of Georgia. This is several months ago, I think back in 2019, when Georgia passed the anti-abortion laws. Mm-hmm. Which are a wonderful thing in my opinion, and I know in yours.
My opinion too.
And there was a lot of uproar about that from the left, and Disney said, "Well, I'm not sure if we can film in Georgia now." Now, some of you are like, "Film in Georgia? Why wouldn't you film in Hollywood?" Georgia, over the last many years, has become a rival of Hollywood as far as like where to shoot movies and film. They've offered huge tax incentives to studios. And it's been successful because they've drawn a lot of business there.
Yeah, you can just scroll to the end of a lot of the credits, and you'll see the Georgia Peach.
Yeah,
it's at the end of the end credits.
A lot of the Avengers movies, I believe. But I feel
think
like
I saw it in Marvel ones. Yeah.
They've the film industry there has employed about, I think, around 92,000 people in the state of Georgia.
That's a lot.
So that's a wonderful thing for that state. But Disney said when they heard that those laws were passed, well, we're not really sure if we can film in the state of Georgia anymore because a lot of people that we employ won't really like that, yada, yada, yada. And then, of course, Mulan comes out. And where did they film Mulan? In China, which doesn't seem an unreasonable place to shoot movies, especially about a movie that's shot in that part of the world. China. Except for the reason, like if you're going, well, we're not going to shoot in the state of Georgia in the United States of America because they're not pro-abortion. It seems a little hypocritical to go and film your movie in China when they have concentration camps, in essence, in that nation.
Right.
For political prisoners.
I was going to make it do this. I wonder if it'll pick it up. I want to know how to say the word. Let's see. Uyghur. That's what it says it is. The Uighur is pronounced Uyghur. The Uyghur people. That's
the people group in China.
Those are the ones that are. That's a minority.
It's a
people group in China. So you think that we talked about this with like the NBA not caring about China, saying you care about minorities, but not caring about minorities in other countries that are literally going to concentration camps. It's shocking to me. And now I understand how people ignored some of the stuff that was going on in World War II, where, you're sending Jews and people that the Nazis didn't like into concentration camps. Must have been happening for a long time before the war with America started, or before America got into it.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah. And so, like, what happened when they were getting those news reports? Apparently nothing. And apparently it's still nothing. Because no one's doing anything at all about the Uyghur people. Like, doesn't seem to be that the world cares very much about them. Even when we get, like, drone footage showing them in rows of thousands of people with shaved heads and jumpsuits with masks on. Like, did you see that?
I haven't seen that.
Now, I'll put it in the notes for the show, but someone snuck out some drone footage, and it just goes up, and it just goes forever. It's at a train track, and they're loading them onto these train tracks, just like what we see in, like, Schindler's List or something. And I'm like, does nobody care? I know I don't know what I can do about it, but certainly I would not give more money to China than, say, Georgia, where that's not happening. And, one state in our union is deciding what their laws are going to be for their people, which is exactly how the United States is supposed to work. Those representatives are representatives of those people. If Disney doesn't want to film there, fine, film in California or film somewhere else where they're comfortable, but don't go film in the communist Chinese, country where they're literally putting people in concentration camps.
Yeah, it seems very hypocritical, seems very backwards.
Yeah.
And, this is the kind of hypocrisy that we're seeing in the world today, not just from big corporations like Disney, but we're also seeing it from big surprise, we see it from politicians.
Oh, all the time.
But even the most recent show of hypocrisy, in my opinion, was the Nancy Pelosi haircut.
Yeah.
And you know what? Every human being is a hypocrite. We're all hypocrites on one day, at least, more than one day. But in some point in your life, at some point in your day, in some point of your week, your month, you're going to do something hypocritical. You're going to do something that you don't probably feel at the end of the day actually represents what you truly value, or that you want to value. And so, you know what? I'm not even really upset as much of the hypocrisy. I'm upset at the lack of responsibility taken for the hypocrisy. So, well, maybe I'm being too generous. It's not okay to be a hypocrite. Yeah. We're all hypocrites. It's not okay, but we're all hypocrites. But right. I'm trying to work against that, okay? So it is very hypocritical for Nancy Pelosi to go get her hair done in a salon. But what's more astounding to me is after you've been caught, is to stand in front of the American people and say, yes, I accept responsibility for getting duped in a setup. No, just say, yeah, I did the wrong thing. Maybe we should reconsider the laws that we've passed, or these ordinances that we've passed that salons can't be open. Maybe they should be open to one customer at a time.
Yeah, they had a weird rule. Like, the way I understood it, just was the rule was weird in that you couldn't get a blowout, like, which is drying the hair, right?
Yeah.
But you could still go there like one at a time. Like there was some kind of weird thing. Because for me, what bothers me about these rules is that they seem to not make any sense logically in terms of consistency. And then you have a lot of politicians who have an upper class mentality. Rules for you don't apply to me kind of thing. Remember I was telling you a couple minutes ago that there was a news article that someone shared, not from Russia Times or any of those fringe websites, but where in San Francisco, gyms inside of work buildings had remained open this whole time.
Yeah.
And it just came out that government workers were able to go to the gym. And I'm like, what's the difference between that gym and Gold's Gym? You know, the difference is that the political ruling class gets to do stuff that the regular people don't. And that's the inconsistency. And that's the reason why the Constitution is incredibly skeptical of power.
Right.
And why we, have things like the Second Amendment and stuff. It's like, I'm not suggesting we should do something about
Sure.
like, this, rise up. They got to get their hair blown out. That's not what I'm saying. But the idea here is that everyone knows, like you said, they're hypocrites, but everyone knows that power corrupts. We all know that. People lie about it. They think that it doesn't. Like, it's not going to happen to me. That's the self-deceit that we all play into because we want the power. But once you have the power, the best part of having power, I guess, is you get to do what you want to do. And if Nancy Pelosi gets to get a haircut and Mayor Lightfoot in Chicago gets to go get, her nails and hair done or whatever it is that she did, and there's like a whole list of politicians that have just gone and done whatever they wanted to during this time. And you're like...
Well, and I will say this also, it's very indicative of behavior of people in the Socialist Party.
Well, yeah.
If you look around the world and you look at true socialist nations, I'm not talking about Sweden. Sweden's really not a socialist nation. They have a lot of social programs, but their economic system is not socialism. Mm-hmm. But if you look at like Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, what you see is that the politically elite have these privileges that the rest of everybody doesn't have. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of mentality that's seeping in to the Democratic Party. That's the kind of mentality that they're trying to push on. I'm not saying everybody in the Democratic Party, but you've got the people who are super out there, in my opinion, that are really pushing socialism agenda, not just social programs, but they're saying socialism as an economic system in America. That's the where they're wanting to go, which I think is very alarming. I think it's very dangerous. I don't think that it really helps anybody. And that kind of behavior is very indicative of that. And if you go look at these nations and you're like, well, this is what we want our leaders to be like. We want our nation to be like Cuba. We want our nation to be like Venezuela. I don't think so.
Yeah, because I think that the key there is what you see in those kinds of nations, and it could be right-wing as well, authoritarian countries, is that that is the outcome of human nature, the sinful nature of humans. And even if we're not socialist or maybe we're not a socialist or a fascist country, and we're not right now. The United States is neither of those things.
Thank God.
Right, but you still see human nature, just it's on a smaller scale. So whereas in communist China, members of the party have different rights and privileges than the regular peons, and in Cuba the same thing, and so on. We're seeing that here with our political class. And as long as we continue to be blind to the idea that if you give power to someone, they're going to keep collecting power because it's an aphrodisiac, it's an addiction to get that power, because it feeds into the carnal nature of humans to say, I want to get what I want to get, and I want to get more and more and more. It sounds dumb to say, well, so-and-so got a haircut. It's just a haircut. Who cares about a haircut? It's not just a haircut. It's the fact that you made rules for all of us that you're not following.
Right.
And that means that there's two different social classes. There's the ruling class, and then there's the rest of us.
And then the refusal to take responsibility. Even that's
Well, what can you say? Because
that's almost more upsetting to me.
Well, they're not. I don't expect them to, and I feel like when people do the apologies, it's all just canned crap that, someone tells them that they have to say. I'm so sorry, that I offended. If I offended anyone, I'm so sorry. I've learned a lot, and so I'm going to spend some time educating myself and grow. And you're just like, you're a liar. Just don't even say it because it's stupid, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, don't.
Did you hear about the Major League Baseball announcer that was calling a game?
And he should not have said.
Oh, it was horrible.
That was
terrible.
Stupid and horrible.
And then made this horrible excuse and said, "I didn't realize. I didn't know."
Bull.
Oh my gosh!
Every child in school knows that that's a slur.
Yeah,
absolutely,
totally not cool.
What he thinks it's the same mentality. I have power. And since I have power, I have the right to say it. And here's the thing. I'm guessing quite a lot of people talk like that in private.
Well, he thought he was off mic. He didn't realize his mic was live.
And I bet
and
they
he,
all
and he made some
and,
slur against homosexual.
That's right. And he thought it was okay because he's in the power. But he got caught by the peons. And, of course, even if we don't have the power to abuse other people necessarily, we're still not going to like it if you get caught. But, we all do it. It's like that dude in the Bible. Remember the rich guy? He owed a lot of money. And then the king said, here, I'm going to let you off.
Yeah.
And then he goes, and then someone else owed him a little bit of money. And he's like, give me your money. Right?
Yeah.
It's that like, it's okay for me, but it's not okay for you kind of thing. And it's human nature.
Totally wrong. Going back to Mulan, there's a little bit more to talk about that.
Oh, we're going to talk about Mulan today.
No, but
just kidding.
But you brought something up to me. It wasn't on my radar about the actress that plays Mulan.
Yeah, when you said that there was controversy, I had no idea about the Georgia versus the Uyghurs. Is that right, Uyghur?
I don't know how to pronounce it.
I gotta say it right because
it's some Chinese word.
Here we go.
Uyghur.
That's what Google says.
Well, yeah, we'll find out if Google. If the Uyghurs are screwing with us, we'll know. But yeah, I thought you were talking about the actress who played Mulan, and she had come out when Hong Kong was having the unrest in favor of the cops, which I found ironic for an American. I think she's an American citizen. Like, it seems very in vogue to be against cops in our country and for cops in other countries that are actually authoritarian. I mean, in China, if she didn't say the right things and she's a Chinese actress, one of the big name Chinese actresses disappeared last year.
Yep.
Just straight gone. We don't even know where she is.
Take her to the concentration camp.
She's gone. She's breaking rocks somewhere with a hammer. I mean, it's like you're gone. There was a high ranking rich guy who was like an international business person, just gone, and they don't know where they went. That's a fascist authoritarian country.
Right.
That doesn't happen here.
Right.
So it's interesting that we can be pro those kinds of cops. And you can say, well, Hong Kong's not China. Yeah, but the Hong Kong police were on the side of communist China against the pro-democracy Hong Kongers. And so I found that to be, again, it's a matter of perspective. If you only hear that the cops that you can see are terrible, you only hear all the things that they do is wrong, you're going to be against them. And which makes sense, right? Because if you only see someone there, it's like a doctor only seeing sick people and thinking the whole world is ill, and that's like, it's a limited perspective. If the doctor never goes out and sees all the healthy people, he's going to have a skewed perspective. In this case, we need more young people to see the real China.
Yes.
And we need more real young people to see the real Cuba and the real Venezuela. Yeah. And if you can see the real Venezuela, if we can just take some like missionary trips to Venezuela, we're going to take 20 of you at a time. It'll take a couple of years. We're going to get all of you young people to go to there, 20 every couple of days. Just keep rotating them in. I was like, what is that noise? Cash is playing games. But I'll tell you what, you see real bread lines. You see real people starving to death. They see a dog, go get it because that's the only food they're going to have. You see that, or you see the social, they have social scores in China.
Yeah.
Just like the Black Mirror episode with Ron Howard's daughter.
Okay, I don't know. I mean, I have heard of Black Mirror. I don't know much about it, but I have heard about social scores, even in, I think, North Korea, or maybe, I don't know.
Well, they're trying to
maybe I'm confusing it with China.
Some people are trying to do it here. It's like it's like a get along with the rest of the party thing kind of. Anyways, they do it in China, and if you don't have a high enough social score, you can't even rent things, you can't get cars, whatever. It's Bryce Dallas. What's her name? Howard? Bryce Dallas Howard?
Oh, yeah. Her or his daughter.
That episode of Black Mirror is perfect. People should watch that. Watch Black Mirror. That episode was like, you'd think, oh, that's so crazy. That is literally happening in China right now. If you don't have a high enough social score, you can lose your job. You cannot get a job. You can't get in a taxi to go somewhere. You can't travel. Yeah, it was a really great episode. Obviously some language and stuff. So I don't think the 8 people that listen to us care.
Not suitable for children.
It's not, but I watched it with my teenage daughter.
Okay. So Bryce Dallas Howard, does this sound like it's that?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. So the episode is called Nosedive. The show Black Mirror. Where can they see this? Is it on Netflix?
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
It's free on Netflix. It's really scary when you think about it. And that's how sci-fi, that's what attracts me to sci-fi. Most good sci-fi is cautionary. It's like what could happen with the future. And Star Trek is not a good example, because Star Trek, the original Star Trek is great because it expects you to be a bad guy by nature. But the Next Generation, by that time, somehow humans have somehow overcome their human nature, which is not true. So it's not going to be a utopia, guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to Mulan.
Yeah.
Did you know that I saw some clips of Mulan and I was really disappointed with 2 things. First, Mulan is like a superhero.
She has superpowers?
I saw this clip where she falls out of a building and CGI flips and jumps from place to place, kicking up things and catching them with her hands and stuff, and then she lands and she's superhero landing. So
it's kind of reminiscent of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
Maybe, but the best part about Mulan was, the original cartoon, was that she did something that was brave because it wasn't something that she was good at, that she was expected to be good at, or that she was even good at, right? You can't be brave to do something that you're like, look how brave I am. I'm lifting this mug. Did you know I can lift that mug?
You need a trophy.
Right. But if I couldn't do something and I step out of my comfort zone, that's where that song, You Make Me Brave song. But, it's like, but anyways, she goes to save her father because her father is handicapped.
Right.
And if he gets drafted, he's going to die. So she's like, I can't let my father die. I need to keep, I need to step out and do this. And so she goes out and she isn't good at it at first, right? She gets beat up. In fact, that's how they find out she's a girl. She gets beat up. And then her commander or whatever, sergeant, whatever, figures it out, But she's just a normal person.
Right.
She's not some, I can stand on top of bamboo poles and karate chop people to death kind of thing that never gets hurt. And they took both of those aspects out of it. She didn't go to save her father, which, as a father is kind of a good thing I was like, oh, thank you. I want my daughters to be drafted instead of me too. Just kidding. I don't. No. But I was like, oh, she cares so much about her dad. And because ultimately, this is a relationship between a dad and a daughter kind of story, right? And bringing honor to the family. And that's not there. She's just a superhero. And on one scene, I saw a clip, and it's this narrative that we hear in the world today. And they're like, Mulan, you must put aside your special gifts. You must hide them and button them up. And I'm like, who's telling people that? That's so unrealistic. Yeah. If I had a ninja daughter...
I liked that you got closer to the microphone for that.
Mulan. I'm trying to get deeper. If I had a ninja daughter, I would have just sent her... I'd be like, hey, Mulan, go take your ninja powers and go kill the Huns. Go take out Genghis. We'll be good.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Taking out Genghis sounds good right now. Actually, Genghis Grill. But
yeah, we could eat some Chinese
anyway,
food.
So she doesn't... And then she fights a girl instead of Genghis Khan.
Wow, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah,
you're ruining it for me.
Yeah, it's like this.
You're ruining it for me that Disney is going to ruin it for me.
It did ruin it for me. Birds of Prey was like.
What's interesting because of the shot for shot remakes of these live action remakes like Lion King. Mm-hmm. Aladdin, so Aladdin the cartoon as a kid was like one of the pinnacle of the Disney films during that era.
Yeah,
It was like
I was a teenager.
I wouldn't say the golden age of Disney cartoons, because that was way before our time.
But it was our golden
But
age.
it was. Okay, guys, we're in my dining room shooting this podcast. And of course, my dog has a freak out moment because there's a car that drove by the front of the house.
Defensive dog. He's
Yes.
the smallest defensive. He's a ninja. He's like a little ninja Mulan.
He is all bark and no bite. So this Renaissance period of the Disney movies, during our childhood, I was a little bit too old to really get into Lion King when it first came out. But but my kids have seen it 1,000 times. I've seen it with them 1,000 times. I've been in the room when it's on. Really enjoyed the live action remake. When I say the live action, it's all, computers, but
It was just another drawing.
it was great. Aladdin, super skeptical that was going to be any good. If you were saying that the cartoon Aladdin was, say 10 for 10, I would say the live action remake was probably an 8.5.
It was
Not
better.
disappointing.
It was better than I expected, because
Way
I did not
better.
expect Will Smith would be able to do anything close to Robin Williams. But
Yeah, and you just have to get out of your brain, like you're not trying, like, don't compare Will Smith with Robin
That's
Williams.
the problem, is comparing.
Robin stinking amazing Williams.
he was too good.
Like, who could have even played that character better? Nobody better.
Black.
Maybe just a couple of
Could
people
have had
equally.
Jack Black do it. Still wanted Jack Black.
Yeah, maybe. Another person I'm thinking of maybe is Martin Short. Would have probably done a great
Martin
job.
Short could have done it.
But
A well-known comedian.
but
would
now
have
we
said
have
it.
Mulan, and why the departure?
Well, I know why the departure, and it goes to the additional song in Aladdin. Remember the additional song where Jasmine's talking about how you're not going to keep me quiet?
Right.
It's this weird narrative that women aren't allowed to talk, or women aren't allowed to have a say. And I know that there are some environments where that is true. But overall in society, if you were to ask, is a woman's opinion valid? Of course.
In Western culture.
In Western culture,
Yeah.
The answer is yes. It doesn't always work out like that in reality, because of human nature and because of people, don't want to share. And I've had that situation where friends of mine at work have basically been told, like, sit down, little girl, the boys are talking, which is absolutely unacceptable. But they wanted to make it empowering. And for some reason, like, we humans just can't do empowering in terms of equality. We can't just say we're equal. We have to swing the pendulum one way or another. Men are superior, women are superior. I'm like, both are awesome.
Right.
Can't we just be equal? And I was saying real briefly, Birds of Prey was a fun film. It was a dumb, fun film, right? But every once in a while, they'd throw something in there about how, like, girl power. And I'm like, you know what? When I was growing up watching the Dallas Cowboys, I'm not a fan of Dallas Cowboys, but I'm pretty sure Emmitt Smith said something like he was told from a young age when he scores a touchdown to act like he'd been there before. Something along that route.
Yeah.
And he would
I
just
remember
go in
something like
and
that.
drop the ball and run back to the huddle.
Yeah.
That is the way that it should be in film. Women are empowered. That's right. Act like you've been there before. Don't like try to make a big deal about it, because when you make a big deal about it, you're kind of like rubbing it in people's faces. And I would prefer you just to be like empowered. There's been women leaders in movies. There's been black superheroes prior to Black Panther. There's a lot of these cool things where I'm like, good. This is good that there should be diverse heroes. There should be women heroes. But it's not. But you shouldn't be a woman hero because it's important to have a woman hero. Important to have a woman hero. You should be a woman hero because you're a cool.
Because you're
character.
worthy. Yeah.
And you're an awesome character.
Yeah.
And that's it. Don't like wink at the audience and say I should have been here before. You took too long to make this film. Just make a cool film. That's what I'm talking about. And Mulan takes a lot of time to show how awesome Mulan is, and they take away the parts of that film that were cool. Like, I read that they took away the love interest of her commanding officer because of the Me Too movement, and he was the boss, and so there was a power dynamic there. And I'm like, did anybody ever think that Mulan was somehow
coerced
or something. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And the relationship only comes about once she's not even a part of the military anymore.
Right.
They meet each other. They realize they like each other.
Very organic,
yeah. and not because he's the boss. And in fact, she leaves the military because she's been outed and she can no longer do that. And then only at the end do they realize that we should be together. It's not the same, but we're so afraid of all these hot topic things. We can't just make something fun. Make it fun.
You were quoting. We think we were quoting Emmett Smith, or you were quoting.
I think so, but I might be wrong about that.
Well,
but it was one of those era players,
and it was probably obviously wasn't something that he made up.
It wasn't Terrell Owens.
It was something that he was told. It was not. Anyway. That's something I've told my kids dozens of times. We're getting ready to do something really cool, possibly, or go somewhere where, hey, this is really not the appropriate place for us to make a fool of ourselves, or act like you've been here before. And that doesn't mean to don't show excitement or to don't show appreciation or anything like that. But it's a classier way. It's a higher way of behaving. And it applies in a lot of different scenarios, not just the one that you were giving. But I like that. I say that. I've said that to my kids dozens of times. It's been a while, but
it's the same mentality that is the opposite of the director was mean to me kind of mentality.
Right.
It's just go and you work hard and you get it. And when you get it, you don't rub it in people's faces. You're just going to be like, I scored. I'm done.
Sure.
I've arrived kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if I got to be an actor in a Marvel film or a DC film and I got to be one of those characters, that director is going to be a jerk to me. I still get to be one of those characters, man. I'm one of those characters. So what? He made me say booyah. Whatever. Full circle. I see you have that one. You underlined it.
Well,
I don't think we have time for that one.
I think we're running out of time. What time is your appointment?
10? 10 minutes. We got maybe 10 minutes.
Okay, so let's go here first, and then we'll end with that one.
Okay. One of the things that Trump did recently was he made it illegal for intersectionality, basically identitarianism, to be taught under the guise of diversity training.
Okay, so
in government.
In 30 seconds or less, tell me what intersectionality is.
Well,
can you?
Yeah, 30 seconds is hard, but intersectionality is this idea that the hierarchies of power that exist in the world, according to the theory, intersect. And so certain oppressed groups, if we can band those oppressed groups together, then they'll be able to stand up for themselves. The problem is that once you get those oppressed groups together, they also form a hierarchy, because humans form hierarchies. And when you form a hierarchy, what you end up getting is some oppressed groups are more oppressed than others, according to the theory. And so what you have basically is a value system that's based on being more oppressed than someone else. And so it leads to additional, kind of like a virtue. Being oppressed is a virtue. And you also, the outcropping of that is some of the stuff like Robin DiAngelo's book about how every white person is racist. And someone said you should always say self-avowed racist Robin DiAngelo, because she talks about how she's a racist. And I'm like, speak for yourself, Robin. I'm not going to let you speak for me. But but basically what Trump's executive order here says is that it's come to the president's attention that executive branch agencies have spent millions of taxpayer dollars to date training government workers to believe divisive anti-American propaganda. And that's how it works out, because the oppression groups, the intersectionality, is where you're getting some of the stuff that we see in the farthest left. And they're trying to push it to the center. But that's why a lot of my friends who are not far left, but are left, are all of a sudden feeling like the only place they can go is conservatism. Because for most normal people, centrists, moderates, slightly liberal, slightly conservative, none of this stuff is right. We don't believe America is a terrible place. We don't believe every white person is racist. The fact that you would even say every white person is racist is a racist thing to say.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what we've been taught. And there's some confusion there, because Gen X and before, Gen X was raised on Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, that's our hero. And so when we say, I have a dream that my children are going to be treated based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin, we take that seriously. You can say there's a lot of things that are wrong. Absolutely, there are a lot of things that are wrong.
Absolutely, there are.
And we do need to fix it. But the idea of not treating someone based on the content of their character, but instead treating them differently based on the color of their skin, is the opposite of what Martin Luther King Jr. told us.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
And we were raised to not do that. And people are now saying things like colorblind is bad. No, colorblind means I'm not treating someone different based on their color of their skin.
Right.
Which
it's
is
not. It's not that you're refusing to recognize that there's different cultures that exist.
Right.
There are different cultures that exist.
And some are
culture's
awesome.
a beautiful. Yeah, and culture's a beautiful thing. And there are some negative things occasionally about some cultures other than others, and we don't want to celebrate or elevate those.
Right.
But colorblindness is not the refusal to say, well, just your culture, doesn't exist, or what you're saying. I'm refusing to treat this person differently based on the color of their skin
and on what they look like, which for me was even more shocking because growing up in Southern California. In the city, we were surrounded by black, brown, white, all the different colors. In the mountains, when I was living in the mountains, we were surrounded by mostly white, Hispanic, and Native Americans. And for you to say I'm going to treat someone different based on the color of their skin, talk about an oppressed people group. Native Americans are there, man.
Yeah.
Native Americans have been screwed over for a long time, and they're still in many ways being screwed over. If you've ever been to a reservation, then at least when I would go to the reservation, which was literally across the highway from the community in which I lived in high school, when we would go over there, that's real poverty. That's a single wide mobile home with government cheese and government canned goods that literally say U.S. government on them. That's real. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so the idea that I would treat someone differently based on the color of skin is a foreign concept to those of us who have been trained in this Gen X coming out of the our parents were the ones in the civil rights movement. And in California, my parents were not the ones, beating up people in Selma. I'm not from that group. My people were from California, the beach and Hollywood and orange groves and things like that. That's what my grandparents were from. So anyways, Trump just says, and I think it's wonderful because should we care about diversity? Should we treat everyone right? Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely we should. Should we teach people that, quote, virtually all white people contribute to racism? No. What are we trying to make people? Are we trying to grow up a generation, whatever the new generation is called? Why? All those white kids, are we trying to give them a complex? What's the point here?
Well, it seems like just even seems like a racist thought.
It's definitely a racist
and it's
thought.
You're automatically making everyone else bias towards this other people group based on the color of their skin.
Yeah.
And
well, that's what some of them say.
It just makes zero sense to me whatsoever.
Well, have you heard the term anti-racist?
Yes.
Okay. Abraham X, what's his last name? I forget his name. Abraham X Emendi.
YZ.
No, no. He's an author. He has a book called Anti-Racism.
What you're saying sounds familiar. I can't think of his last name.
I forget his name. I just remember the X, which is exactly why you put it in there as his middle name. But
we have a computer right in front of us.
We could look it up. But in his anti-racism book, his point is that to solve discrimination against one group...
Kendi? Is that his name? Henry? Which one is this?
No, Kendi. X Kendi.
Yeah.
Abraham X Kendi. That's right. How to Be an Anti-Racist. That's the book I'm talking about. To solve discrimination against one group, it's okay to discriminate against the other group. And I'm like, this is the two wrongs don't make a right message.
It's the hypocrisy.
We all know that that's not how you do it. What is it? Who said if you did an eye for an eye, everyone would walk around half blind?
Right, yeah.
And you have that, this is not right. This is another one of those swinging the pendulum things. Where it's wrong, where we find racism, we root it out. Where we find systematic issues, we root it out. Where we find people not being treated fairly based on the color of their skin or because of their class, with the political class and so on, we root it out. We don't do it for us. The wrong answer which we found out from the French Revolution, was to kill the aristocrats,
right,
and then become the aristocrats,
right?
Cats, I said aristocrats, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't the right solution. The right solution was the American Revolution, which was to get rid of the ruling class and then make an overall equal society. That's what America is, and that's
Sure.
one of the things that is great about America.
Yeah, and some people might push back and say, "Well, that we had slavery at that time."
Yes.
Yeah, we did. There was some horrible things that we hadn't worked out yet as a nation, but here we are now, 2020, and if we look at the laws of our land, we've made a tremendous amount of progress.
Yeah.
We have had an entire war that was fought to free slaves. We've had the civil rights movement. Women can vote. There's a tremendous amount of progress that we've made. We are really actually going in the right direction, even though the bell that's being rung right now is that we've not made any progress. And
Yeah.
we're still trying to go and live in the past and going, wait a second, why are we saying that this stuff is the problem when we've made this progress?
Yeah, until the UK, which I don't think they were the UK at that time, the British Empire or whatever. The Amazing Grace song, remember that guy?
Yes, John Newton.
And that was during the abolition of slavery in the UK. Until Britain and then the United States got rid of slavery, there was not a single culture in the history of mankind that didn't practice some form of slavery. And until this time in the West, again, there wasn't a single culture that didn't take land from someone else. And now we know that that's wrong. And now we've come to the conclusion that slavery is wrong. We used to believe that treating people by the color of the skin differently is wrong. We believe taking land from someone and property from someone is wrong. But yet some of these things are being reversed. The idea that it was wrong to take land from the Native Americans, which it was, because it was their property, someone else coming in and taking their property
By force.
is wrong, is the same reason why taking someone's property now and redistributing that wealth
Right.
is wrong, because
Socialism.
it's greed based, because it's theft. These things are wrong.
Yeah.
And so, but our society is not perfect. There are things that the United States has done that have been absolutely terrible. However, when you look at the arc of history, the United States is right there, man. I mean, right at the edge of pushing us forward to a better place. As good as it can get inside this world.
Right.
The United States is right
Are
there.
we perfect?
No.
Are we leading the charge throughout the rest of the world? I'm not saying that there are no other nations that are doing this, but
There's other nations
but
that are
we
doing good.
but we are right up there with them, doing a very great, a fantastic job. It's interesting though. You bring up though going the Native Americans.
I knew
and,
we wouldn't
this
have
is kind of a sidebar here, but it's like all the people that are shouting, "Hey, we want socialism as an economic system here in America to be established." Yada, yada. I'm like, really? Let's go over to the Indian reservations and see how they live. And those are people that are being taken care of by the U.S. government.
Not well. I mean,
No, they're being horribly taken.
Right.
There's a terrible breakdown.
And it's good that I know I'm not a huge fan of casinos, but it's good that there are casino rights, and they have some other rights that are cool because they have sovereign land. It's cool that they got like Eastern Oklahoma, and they're going to work that out. I mean, that's cool. Honor our commitments. And when I say I didn't write those commitments, but I'm a member of this country, so the United States should honor their commitments. But
Certainly.
now,
Last thing I want to talk about.
we're going to have to go fast.
We'll go fast.
We'll go fast.
We're switching gears here, and we're
Yeah.
talking about raising kids. So last night, sitting in the chair over there, and my son Noble comes in, and probably for at least the third time in the evening, he wants to tell me something about his day that I don't care about at all. I don't care.
Sorry, Noble.
He wants to tell me. He's not watching this, and I'm not saying I don't care about him.
Right,
But he wants to tell me about one of the strength training exercises that he and his basketball team did yesterday at the gym. And he's just so excited about the team, and he's excited about the basketball season coming up. And I'm so happy for him.
Yeah.
And I just look right at him and I listen the entire time. And I just say, yeah, buddy, tell me about that. And he's telling me about all these, strength training, and then they go to the gym and they shoot hoops. And he's telling me, Dad, yesterday my shooting was on point. It was great. And I'm like, that's awesome. And it's not that I don't care about him, but at the end of the day, 9 o'clock at night, had a long day, had already, done a lot of parenting things that day as well. It wasn't like I was trying to check out and just watch TV and veg out, but I just didn't really care about the nuances of his strength training that day. But I listened anyway, because I realized if I listen to my son right now talk to me about this strength training exercise that he did is not that important, what I'm doing is I'm working a muscle in our relationship. The muscle of him coming to talk to me about things that are important to him. And so one day, when he actually has something important to talk to that I deem as important, a real issue, he will have developed the muscle of, I'm going to go talk to my dad about it. I'm going to talk to my mom about it. I'm talking to my family about this. And so I feel like, it was just, I had this light bulb that came on last night. It's not the first time I've ever thought through this. It's not like I've never had this realization before, but, knowing that we were going to, shoot this podcast today, and the light bulb came on again last night. And I just thought, man, this is a good thing to talk about. It's a good thing for our listeners to consider. Those of you that are parents, those of you that will be parents someday, this is a good strategy. Learn to listen to your kids talk about unimportant things, so that it develops that habit for when they actually do have something important, that you'll be like, oh my gosh, why did my kid hide this from me? Why didn't they feel safe to come and talk to me about this? Maybe because we didn't do a good enough job of developing this part of our relationship of listening. And I'm not saying it works 100% of the time. There's things that you find out about later sometimes. But then it still makes it easier to talk about those things when you do find out, even if your kids didn't come to you and you had to go to them. Still makes it a lot easier. And sometimes it's hard. You're tired. You don't want to listen. You're worn out. You'd rather, just check out and go do something else. Sometimes you're busy and you're important in the middle of something else is important. Oftentimes that happens, especially during quarantine and everybody was home. And all the time we're cooped up in the house, or during the summer before school started up, everybody's around all the time. I'm in the middle of something that is more important to me than listening to them about strength training exercise. And sometimes I'll say, hang on just a second. Let me finish this. This will take 30 seconds for me to finish, or this will take 5 to 10 minutes for me to finish this. And then I will intentionally come back to them and say, all right, now what is it that you wanted to tell me? So it's not always just about, making sure that you're being able to be interrupted all the time. Because sometimes, if you lose the power of focus, that can really mess with you, especially if that's a habit, if you're constantly losing the power of focus. But be sure to come back around to your kids. Be sure to come back around to your spouse. This is an important thing with your spouse as well. Because if your spouse doesn't feel like you're someone that they can talk to, they will find someone else to talk to. Your kids will find someone to talk to if it's not you as a parent. Your spouse will find someone to talk to if it's not you as a husband or as a wife. They will. Mm-hmm. And you don't want that. So, anyway.
That's good.
That's my soapbox.
That's your soapbox.
Yeah. You have to go to an appointment. That's the end of this podcast.
And you'd think it would be like the most important thing, but it's the freaking dentist. And I had to schedule a cleaning like 9 months in advance. What's up with that? It takes 5 minutes.
9 months?
Dude, for real. And then they like changed my schedule.
Did that have anything to do with insurance?
No.
Wow.
They're just booked out, which makes me wonder, should I go to a different dentist that I can go get a cleaning quicker?
I do remember Jamie booking an appointment for her cleaning, and it was like several months in advance, to maybe 4 or 5 months or something like that. I went to get my checkup from my orthodontist the other day, and I've had my braces off for a few months now, and my orthodontist asked me, hey, everything's looking good. Have you had your teeth cleaned?
Well, that's not going to make you feel
And
good.
I was like,
Are you saying that I drank too much
no.
coffee? Is that what you're saying? Because that's why I'm going. I drink iced tea and coffee, so I know I got to go.
Well, what was crazy
Get
is like
cleaned.
seriously, like that the days before I go to the orthodontist, I'm sitting here thinking I probably need to schedule a cleaning. I haven't had seen my dentist since I've had my braces off, and of course, and that was kind of a little bit of an embarrassing question from my orthodontist. But
Do you floss?
I got to do it now. I got to be booked
Do
out
you-
9 months in advance.
It's like
going to be 9 more months.
It's like, do you ever brush your teeth?
Anyway.
Would you say every day? You're like, why are you asking? Have you considered mouthwash for bad breath? What?
Yeah.
Put down. All right, it was good talking to you.
Well, hey
Go get my
everybody.
teeth. I'll be shiny and bright when I see you guys next time.
Thanks for watching or listening to this podcast. Everyone else has a podcast.
Everyone else has a podcast too.
Yeah, and maybe someday you will too.
Peace. Oh, I did the backwards one. Oh, I just flipped off our Australian friends. We were reading.
No, flip it around.
I was not doing that on purpose.
Bye.